The three schools of thought in Sunni Islamic theology, Aqidah, are the Ash'ari, Maturidi, and Athari, often associated with Salafism schools. They represent the main orthodox theological frameworks for understanding God's nature, revelation, and reason. Here is a detailed breakdown of each. 1. Ash'ari school. Founded by Abu al-Hasan al-Ash'ari, d. 936 CE, in Baghdad. He was initially a Mu'tazilite theologian but famously broke away from him, using their own rationalist tools to defend orthodox beliefs. Core methodology strikes a balance between scriptural authority and rational argumentation. Reason is used to defend revelation and explain beliefs, but it does not supersede the Quran and Sunnah. Key doctrines: divine attributes, affirms all of God's attributes mentioned in the Quran and Hadith without modality, bila kayf. This means they are accepted as real, but without asking how they are. For example, God has a hand and is established on the throne, as stated in the Quran, but these are not literal, physical body parts. They are real attributes whose true nature is unknown to us. Quran. The Quran is the eternal, uncreated speech of God. However, the physical copies, the recitation, and the sounds are created. Human free will and divine predestination develop the doctrine of acquisition, kasab. Humans do not create their own actions. God is the sole creator of all acts. However, humans acquire these actions, making them responsible for their choices. It's a middle path between absolute determinism and the Mu'tazilite idea that humans create their own acts. Reason and revelation. Reason can prove God's existence and the need for prophecy. However, on specific matters like the details of the afterlife, revelation is the primary source, and reason must interpret scripture in a way that avoids anthropomorphism. Predominance. This is the most dominant theological school in Sunni Islam historically. It is the default theology of the Shafi'i and Maliki legal schools and is endorsed by Al-Azhar University in Egypt. Most Sufi orders also align with Ash'ari theology. 2. Maturidi school. Founded by Abu Mansur al-Maturidi, d. 944 CE, in Samarkand, Central Asia. It developed concurrently with the Ash'ari school and shares many of its core positions, with some key differences in emphasis. Core methodology places a slightly stronger emphasis on the role of human reason alongside revelation. It argues that the human mind, independently, can grasp good and evil to some extent, even without revelation. Key doctrines: divine attributes, very similar to the Ash'aris, affirming attributes without modality. They are often seen as being more explicit in affirming the attributes as eternal and subsisting in God's essence. Quran, same position as the Ash'aris. The Quran is the uncreated speech of God. Human free will and divine predestination, they give a more robust role to human agency. While God is the creator of the act, the human's choice and power are real and effective, not just an acquisition in the Ash'ari sense. This leans closer to acknowledging free will. Faith, Iman, defined as affirmation in the heart, and does not increase or decrease. This is in contrast to some groups who held that deeds are part of faith. Predominance. This is the dominant theological school for the Hanafi legal school, which is prevalent in the Ottoman lands, South Asia, India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Central Asia, and Turkey. Ash'ari versus Maturidi summary. They are sister schools and have been considered the two pillars of Sunni orthodoxy for centuries. Their differences are subtle and primarily of emphasis, not core belief. They united against common adversaries like the Mu'tazila and the anthropomorphists. 3. Athari school, often associated with Salafism. The term Athari comes from Athar, meaning narrations, from the early Muslims, the Salaf. This school rejects theological speculation, kalam, as an innovation, bid'ah. Core methodology, strict, literal adherence to the Quran, the Sunnah, and the understanding of the Salaf al-Saleh, the pious predecessors, the companions and the 2 generations after them. Reason is not used to interpret the text but only to understand it within its apparent meaning and the context provided by the Salaf. Key doctrines. Divine attributes. Affirms God's attributes in a literal sense, zahir, but also without questioning the how, bila kayf. The crucial difference is that they reject any metaphorical interpretation, ta'al. For them, God has a hand in a manner that befits His majesty, but it is a real hand, not power, or blessing, as the Ash'arists might interpret. The how is unknown. Quran. The Quran is the uncreated speech of God, including its letters and sounds. Human free will and divine predestination, a strong emphasis on God's decree, qadar, both the good and the bad. Humans act by a will that God has created, but they are still held accountable for their choices. The details are considered part of the unseen, that should not be excessively debated. Theology, kalam. They consider the entire discipline of kalam, speculative theology, to be a blameworthy innovation, leading to division and error. Predominance. This is the theological foundation of the Hanbali legal school and is the official theology of modern Saudi Arabia. It is the school most commonly associated with the modern Salafi movement. In conclusion, these 3 schools have coexisted for over a millennium and are all considered within the fold of Sunni orthodoxy, despite their vigorous historical and ongoing debates. The Ash'ari and Maturidi schools are often grouped together as the schools of Kalam, while the Athari school stands apart in its methodological rejection of that very discipline.